Greetings and a very warm welcome to Viewpoint, where we discover the secrets of successful entrepreneurs and industry leaders, all in an attempt to give you the correct tools that can be applied to your own business. I'm Jeremy Maggs, and in today's program, we're going to deal with, and how can I put this gift or this curse, I guess, of being a serial entrepreneur. What does that mean? Well, managing multiple businesses. Is it really possible, I wonder, to chase all of your interests? Is it good to go after every single opportunity that presents itself? Or does success perhaps come, I wonder, from focusing all your energy on one specific or particular venture? We're going to explore the pros and cons of managing multiple entities and figuring out, I think, two things. How do you do it, and how do you do it well? And also, what is the right thing for you to do? And I'm so excited today to introduce you to my two guests. Both have successfully navigated building multiple businesses, albeit with very different reasons, strategies, and approaches. Our first guest seems to have done it all already. My goodness, what an impressive pedigree. Recipient of numerous international entrepreneurship awards, voted as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum, has also featured on the cover of Forbes magazine, and the founder of the startup Rekindle Learning, as well as FFWD Innovation. Rapelang Rabana, sitting with me today. Also, alongside her is self-proclaimed, and I'm trying to find the right words here. I'm going to use the word fire starter, and maybe you'll get a sense later of exactly what I mean. I want to introduce you to Tlhompho Mokoena of the very hot new franchise player. It's called The Wing Republic. To both of you, the very warmest of welcomes. I am looking forward to the conversation as we explore the notion of entrepreneurship. And Rapelang, I'm going to start with you. Let me see if I've got this right. Chief Digital Officer at a corporate IT firm. Then something changed, and you've gone into spaces as an entrepreneur where you're all about digital transformation. Sure. You've seen a gap. What is the gap?
I actually saw the gap straight from university. So I've been predominantly an entrepreneur and just did a short corporate stint about 2017. And the gap that we initially saw coming out of university was that, you know, the world of technology was very separate from business. And the technical people were meant to sit in a corner, and the business people are meant to make the decisions and tell them what to do. And that by its nature meant that they couldn't appreciate the kind of applications that could be built using technology. So straight from university, we started our first company. We developed some of the earliest voice over IP, so like WhatsApp calls, but way back in 2006, long before it was a popular thing. And that gap was sort of just the first one. And as I go on and on, almost every business challenge or business constraint in every environment kind of lends itself to using digital technologies.
Can I ask you a really basic question?
Sure.
The more experience you have, is it easier to see the gap?
The more experience I have, I think it is, because now I'm at the point where I no longer assume stuff. And the less you assume, the easier it is to actually pick things up that could be done differently. And I think maybe at an earlier stage in my life, I might have thought that some industries that I didn't understand, they maybe didn't need technology, but now I actually have learned to spot it everywhere. And the kind of signs I look at is, you know, the sources of client frustrations, the sources of employee frustrations, the sources of revenue leakage, the inability to find new products and services. They're all there, actually.
Tlhompho, we're going to come to you and talk about chicken wings in much detail. But just very quickly.
Yes.
The more experience you've garnered, do you have a greater appetite for risk?
I think I've had far too big an appetite for risk my whole life. I like to think that in business, I take all of my risks. In my personal life, no risks is what I tell my family. So I think I'm just more and more ambitious and almost, naive about the potential of technology to be used everywhere to solve almost every single socioeconomic challenge.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of well-managed naivete.
Yeah.
Tlhompho, good to meet you. first of all, before we even get into your entrepreneurial journey, I'm talking to you, and by the way, to all of our viewers, we are very seriously socially distanced here. But I talk to you in the middle of the fourth wave of the Delta variant of COVID-19. You must be in pain at the moment, eh?
It's crazy, yeah. It's very, very crazy. I mean, more than anything else. In fact, we had this conversation earlier to say how is she managing her business compared to ours, you know? So it's been quite tough from our end. I mean, the first thing that the government does, especially where a strategy or the absence of it is concerned, is let's shut down the liquor industry. Let's just, you know, try and control the restaurant industry. So there's nothing else that happens around malls, taxis, trains, whatever, you know what I mean? It's always going at us to say restaurants must do X, Y, Z.
Where do you find it in yourself at a time like this to keep going?
Look,
that inner strength that you need?
Look, for me, the Wing Republic started off as a side hustle, you know? So it's something that I started when I was doing my 9 to 5. And I mean, from selling from a generic gazebo that I got from Macro, you know, to what it is today. I mean, I look at where I started and from where I am now. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Keep going. You know, I mean, that's really was the logic from the get-go, you know, to say, look, I do this thing over the weekend. Marketing manager between Monday and Friday. Saturday, Sundays, I'm selling chicken wings at events, at markets. And this thing started off 2014, opened our first store in 2017, and gradually we've been growing it. You know, I mean, today I'm working on opening 2 stores. I think the Devon store is ready, the Rosebank store is almost ready, you know. So from what started off from a second-hand griller and $2,000 worth of stock to what it is today, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Just keep going.
What draws people to the brand?
I think more than anything else, I'd like to think that it's a cool brand. You want to be associated with it, you know. So
what does that mean? What's a cool brand?
So a cool brand for me is something that you want to check into. You know, it's not a brand. It's a brand that you want to engage with, and everyone around you to see that you at this brand. You know what I mean? So it's also I run my own social media pages. So customers will tend to say, please take a picture of me, post me, or a picture of the food. So because I run my own social media page, I've also tend to engage with a lot of customers. So with it, it's on time all the time, you know? So you sitting at the store, I take a picture of you, and immediately I post it.
Are you both on it 24/7? Do you eat, sleep, and breathe your brand as well? Because that's the sense I'm getting from
Well, look,
from
he
Tlhompho.
looks cool, so you know, does the cool stuff very well. I don't know if I'm not cool. So I don't think I do social media as well as I should, really. But I am on the
Tell her
internet.
she's cool.
I'm on the internet all the time.
Do the sister a favor. She's cool.
I mean,
she's cool.
She is.
Okay, keep going. Okay.
Okay, so I'm cool, for now at least. But I am online in terms of consuming information all the time. And I love it. And I just don't know how to stop.
So I want to talk to you about something which troubles me. I was looking at your menu. By the way, it's a beautiful menu, beautifully designed, and I can really appreciate that you understand the intrinsic of brand. But why do you put a warning next to the ghost pepper chicken wings option?
Look, I think I've had a lot of customers. Initially, we just introduced it, and the customers would complain. Not necessarily complain a good way, to say the wings are super, super hot, you know?
Did you have to lift them up off the floor?
Not necessarily, but I mean, it's been there. And I think personally, from my own experience as well, is that I can only eat so much, you know? I think we generally serve a 5-piece or a 12-piece. Literally, I can chow one wing and that's it, you know? So, but over and above that, in terms of a marketing gimmick, customers always, if you say don't do it, they want to do it. You know what I mean? So
of course they'll do it.
It's really also that psyche to say, give them a warning and they go into order it because they're like, why is there a warning here? You know what I mean? So everybody wants to try where you say, don't do it. Then, like a little kid, man, don't play with fire.
No, and the next time I'm at your restaurant, when I can eventually go to a restaurant again, I'm going for the ghost pepper. I might regret it, but I'm going for the ghost pepper.
See what I mean?
Just quickly, what's the dish that brings everyone back? And I think there's a subtext to that question, is that what does that say about your customer retention strategy?
I think what brings the customers back from a particular meal is the platters, the wing and the rib platters, you know? Because I think as the logo or as the brand says, it's a crave, indulge and share. So everything else around what do we get as a collective, what do we then eat together, you know what I mean? So we have wings and we have ribs as one platter, so that's what customers tend to order. I mean, as things stand, we're running a promo where if you buy a platter, you get a can of a soft drink. You know what I mean? So that's basically what works for us as a brand.
Okay, so we've got the genesis of your businesses. We've got the fact that you are committed, that there's an appetite for risk, and that you always are paying attention to it, and brands have got to be cool. Starting a business is one thing. It's daunting, it's tough, it's hard, but you're entrepreneurs. You've got entrepreneurial DNA coursing through your veins, I imagine. But you've also launching, as you've both told me, multiple business operations. So I'm going to phrase the question differently. What is the superpower that you have to make you do that?
A superpower? I wouldn't have put it as that. It's more about being stupid and, not...
More
not
about
very-
being stupid. back to a little bit of naivety.
Yes,
Yeah.
For sure. Look, I think when you look at traditional entrepreneurship theory, it does say, you should specialize, dig into one thing, especially the Silicon Valley type entrepreneur stories. But I think that in our market, where things are a lot more fragmented, where markets are not necessarily mature, you kind of have to maybe look at multiple things, because it's easy to, decide you're going to sell, apps for training, assuming that people already have online content that they can put in there already. But what if that industry isn't mature yet? So you kind of have to become a semi-publisher as well, which is slightly different business from what you would have focused on, but you kind of have to fill holes. So for me, coming out of Rekindle Learning, which is where we've done a lot of our micro-learning experiences for companies and universities, is that we find that companies or corporates are not yet ready to consume the cooler digital technologies. So you almost have to go on a bit of an education with them. And this is why we started Fast Forward Innovation, which is more of a digital advisory engagement, where you can help companies identify what their priorities are, help them through design sprints to prototype the kinds of things they need, and through that actually introduce them to new technologies, like the stuff that we're doing at Rekindle Learning, but also a lot of stuff that people are doing out there.
So can I try and come at it from a different way?
Okay.
What I'm also hearing, if we're
Yes.
coming back to the superpower question, is that you got to have the superpower of being nimble and flexible and changing your approach or your strategy or mind very quickly.
Yes, to suit the customer's journey.
Yeah.
That's quite important, yes.
So you're happy with that. So your superpower is you're nimble and you're flexible. What's yours?
Gut feel. Gut feel. I think more than anything else, I always think about it and I just do it. I think I keep going back to how the business started, I mean, this thing genuinely started from going to a market in Soweto and trying to buy chicken wings, and there was nothing there. And literally a month or 2 months down the line, I was already trading, and at the minimal investment that the business was. I mean, it was 2,000, it was second-hand equipment, and we've literally grown this thing from that small operation to like literally 5 stores. And I mean, I keep saying, what's the worst that could happen? Just keep going. I mean, we've been winning thus far, you know what I mean? So I think with Devon, the store that opened in KZN was exactly the same. I used to post because I ran my own social media page, and I tend to get a lot of comments from customers in Devon saying, what about KZN? What about KZN? And I think I just went, how about it? And really that's really, if that's superpower, that's, being stupid and saying, just do it, we'll figure it out. What's the worst that could happen, really?
But he's not being stupid. He responded to customer need.
True.
Precisely. And you were the principal customer in the beginning. You saw the need.
Yes.
So what it also says, let me come at it from a different way. Entrepreneurs watching us on this broadcast will then say, what is your definition of gut feel? Are you seeing something that other people are seeing, or is there just an inherent feeling that I know I'm right?
You know what? I think for me personally, it's always been like the feeling. I think I go more for it, like, don't overthink it. Is an opportunity in KZN, can you get a store? Let's do it. So I never tend to overthink it, because if I overthink it, I'm going to think of 250 outcomes. So if I just go at it and just do it, and we'll figure it out as we go along.
But you must have made mistakes.
Somewhat. I mean, so far we've been doing quite decently. I mean, our store in Bram is literally where we make most of our money, you know what I mean?
Cool.
Pretoria's picking up nicely. During COVID last year, we opened a cocktail bar. So far, everything has been a win, you know? So I haven't, maybe mistakes granted, but I mean, in terms of expanding the business, no. Because so far it's been exactly, so that's what I'm saying. The gut feel has always been, can we open a store? Can we get a lease? Let's do it. How far can we go with this thing? You know what I mean? Who do we partner with? How do we then move the brand forward? So far we've been winning, I guess.
How much has luck had to do with your success?
Sure, it's an interesting one. I do think that things work out a lot in a certain way. But I don't know that one can entirely attribute it to luck. I think that for me, I attribute it to other things. One was the family I come from and my parents, and how that predisposed my mind to think a certain way. It may feel like luck if I don't actually reflect on that.
Slow up.
But
let's pay tribute to your parents.
Yes.
What did they do?
They raised independent children who should be able to do everything, cook and clean and do maths and science. And for as long as you've got hands and feet and a brain, just work hard. It's doable.
I can relate to that.
In what way?
I grew up in a family where my grandmother was selling jerseys at a young age. My mother, again, was selling like spices and shoes and anything she can put her hands on. So I grew up in that environment. So at an early age, I mean, from high school, I was selling dashboard cleaning sprays, you know what I mean? Like I'd sell spices over the weekend. This was in high school. So as much as I got the corporate training for, 10 years of my existence, I still, deep down, I was selling an odd item here or there. So it's always been there. So I think I can relate to your story when you say...
So what I'm hearing from both of you, it was drip-fed into you from an early age.
Yeah.
You were born to be entrepreneurs. Okay.
I don't know about born to be, but born to think, maybe more open-minded, born to work hard, to change how you perceive certain things to be so that you are willing to innovate. That's the kind of stuff I think we were taught.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Okay, now let me ask you this. You're high energy.
Yes.
You're passionate about what you do. You are gathering experience all the time. I'm assuming that you're both very hardworking. So, Rapelang, to you first of all, at some point, it might have happened already or it could happen. There'll be a loss of focus. You'll get burnt out.
Yes, yes.
Has that happened? And if so, how did you deal with it? Or if it happens, how will you deal with it?
Sure, because it's, my second big business that I'm building now, I have been through the first curve where, 7 years at Yego, it was straight work for 7 years and no real holiday in that time. And you definitely hit burnout at that point, especially because the business changed over the years. There were different shareholders. Your role was different. And I got to the point where I was no longer doing the stuff that I loved the most about being in the business. And I think that's where the burnout begins, when you have to expand or expend your energy on things that don't give you energy back. Because, it's what regulations require, what some other admin requires. And when you get to that phase or stage where you're doing too much of that work, I think that's when burnout comes.
Have you experienced it? I have. I think more than anything else is that I've got 3 boys that look up to me. And my wife keeps reminding me that we've got these 3 boys to raise, right?
Sure.
And nothing like the responsibility of family.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think more than anything else, they see their dad as a superhero,
Oh.
And superheroes never quit, So I think I always take it back to why I started this whole thing. As much as I started this based on an opportunity and running with it, but now the boys have realized that we have a business that we own. I keep telling them whether the staff issues, the financial issues, or any other issues that pertain to the business, So more than anything else, even when I want to give up, I'm like, superheroes don't give up, because the 3 boys see me as their hero, you know what I mean? And I think even when I'm burnt out, my wife always reminds me, remember why we started this entire thing, remember why we're doing what we're doing. So my why is getting to a point where at some point my kids can look up to me and look at this business and say, this is what we've built as a family. This is what our dad built, so that they can carry the torch and run with it.
Do your children eat ghost pepper wings?
Nope.
Okay. Just needed to check that out.
No, there's one that is Perry Sakana, which is relatively hot, but
No.
we haven't gotten to ghost pepper.
Guys, so now we've dealt with the philosophy, we've dealt with the passion. Now I need to get into some nitty-gritty because this is important for entrepreneurs, particularly those people who have started, are working, and maybe are looking for the next opportunity. So how did you know when it was time to start the next venture?
A bit of gut feel, like Tlhompho's talked about, but it's also for me, I kind of get, if I get a signal, more than 2 or 3 times, and a signal will be around someone suggesting something, me reading about something that I think that this sounds interesting. Or, so those
Slow
are
it down.
signals.
This is important.
Yes.
The signal.
Yeah.
So you've also, as an entrepreneur, got to be attuned to the environment and to market intelligence all the time. That is such an important lesson. Amplify that for me.
Sure. And it signals, it's not a voice from God, like many people might imagine. And that's what many entrepreneurs are waiting for. It's not quite like that. It's just the little hunches that come up in a conversation.
Yeah.
When someone thinks that you should have done it this way, and like, okay, that could actually be part of that business. And because I've been speaking for a long time, and many people have sort of asked me over the years to give them advice on that technology or strategy or digital transformation plan, etc. And I've heard this over and over again. It was, okay, this is clear that I actually just need to do this now.
Again, did you hear a voice from God, or what was it?
No, more than I got comments from my customers when I was posting to say, what about Pretoria? What about, I mean, in a lot of occasions, especially where my growth is concerned, is generally customer feedback, I mean, I tend to get a lot of customers, especially in Joburg, that says, what about the North? What about Pretoria? What about this? So a lot of my growth expansion strategies is driven by consumer feedback. I mean, you get guys as far as Soweto coming to order from us in Bram, and already you can pick up, or I can pick up rather. There's an opportunity in Soweto. It's based on, because I tend to engage with them. I mean, I'm always at the shop in most cases.
You've both said the same thing. It's about being attuned. It's really important.
100%. So I think it's just that.
So, should the first business be off the ground and flying and all the systems in place before you move on, or can you be working on that and still looking for the next opportunity?
In my line of work, there's always something to improve upon, There's always something to improve upon. So, I mean, I always say you don't have to have it all figured out as long as the willingness to learn is there. I mean, I look at, now that we've got more than one operation, which is one in Pretoria, one in Bram, whatever works better in Braamfontein, for example, we'll adopt it and take it to Pretoria. But
give me an example.
Well, I guess initially we used to use a system called tablet pause. So it didn't have the back end wasn't as effective as GAP, for example, right? So initially we had one system that was running from Bram, and we didn't have a system in Pretoria. But now with the one system, we're able to integrate all the stores. So at any given time, you can remotely see how the both stores are doing, which wasn't there initially. Second example is, I've also picked up that with the expansion of the business, we have to have a call room. I think I was chatting to you about it, to say we need to have, every operation has to have a call room. So some things are based on learning from one operation to the next. So how do we improve?
A cold room?
A cold room, for example.
For the meat.
For the meat, because...
No, it's to send the customers in when they've had the ghost pepper.
In fact, the reason behind that is that because you've got a cold room, you have a lot more storage space.
Yeah.
You are then able to negotiate with your suppliers in terms of taking more stock at a reduced price, as opposed to currently where we have to get orders every single week. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think from a growth, from a cost saving, if you have a cold room, you're able to now negotiate pricing with your suppliers so that you can get stuff at a relatively cheaper price than if it's a regular order that comes in.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Let's talk about time management, particularly when it comes to multiple businesses. How do you split yourself into 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the case is?
Sure. I think there's 2 parts. I think one part is what he's talking about, systems. In my mind, I set up systems from the get-go, and you keep fine-tuning them as you grow. And that's a big part. Don't run a business off Word and Excel. especially with the kind of online tools that you have today where you can see what's happening, everywhere. And in my mind, if all of your businesses are using online project management tools or online document repositories, that means that you can be able to check in on any business without having to arrange a meeting, without having to go to an office. And that's really key in sort of time management in my mind.
How do you optimize systems across multiple businesses?
Well, you can pay for me to come and consult for you, Jeremy.
Okay, I can.
But
Mercifully, I have no. I just ask questions for a living, so it's fine. But
the most simplest things is to use the online tools that you have now. If you're using Google G Suite, use Google and sort of watch the YouTube videos on how you optimize your G Drive or your Microsoft shared drives. There's so many tips out there, actually. You don't
for free.
For free, without having to pay me.
Yeah.
Without having to pay me. So those could work.
Get the punt in if you want to consult her. And I'll take a small commission, it's fine.
No worries. I mean, but the other big part, Jeremy, for me is that it's also important for entrepreneurs to decide what role that you're playing in the business. Because you could be a shareholder, you could be a director, you could be an employee, you could be an advisor, and you can't be the CEO of every business you start up.
Isn't that the key? That because it's your concept, it's your baby, it's your business, there is the tendency, as you rightly say, to be the CEO of everything. You'll micromanage the minutiae. How do you not do that?
It's a bit tricky, man. Because, people come to the shop and say, oh, where are you? I'm like, I'm in Bram. Oh, shucks, we're in Pretoria and we thought we'd hang out. You know what I mean? So in my case, it's relatively different because the people that support you want to engage with you and sit with you, be it friends, be it family, but...
Because you are the personification of the brand.
So what I've then started to do as of late is I tend to promote guys within the ranks. The guys that, i.e., the current store manager in Durban was my waiter, for example, you know what I mean? So because they know how I operate, they know how I engage with different customers, I'm hoping that they now carry that to the next door and the next door, you know what I mean? But in terms of optimizing the current systems is that there is, like you said, the stuff that you can research that you can get online for free. There's systems that are like, for example, like a gap system, where there's a rep that always says, look, this is what we have in terms of improvement. This is how you manage your stock. And so it's also working, I guess, close with your suppliers or service providers.
Are you perpetually vested? And by that I mean, when I'm finished having this conversation with you, I'll probably go home and watch Netflix. It looks like you both are going to go and look at YouTube videos on how to optimize systems. I'm being a little bit self-deprecating here, but are you on it all the time?
I would love to be. My boyfriend says that he's in a relationship with me, my Mac, and him. So it's an ongoing dilemma.
That's his problem.
Exactly. Because I could keep reading and watching stuff all the way. Like, I love learning. And I do have to remind myself that it's 8 o'clock now and I must do normal things now.
What do you read?
Sure. A lot of business books, and also books on personal growth, self-awareness, managing your mind.
And yourself? Are you also, same thing? Are you
Same,
on it
pretty
all the
much
time?
Same thing. I'm always at my stores. I think my wife literally forced me to take days off. Say, you need to take some time off. But if it wasn't for that, I'd always be at the store because I think I'm just married to her and this one thing, because I'm trying, every single day I wake up and I'm like, what do I then do better?
I was going to make a remark about your wife and your boyfriend, but I'm not going there because I'm going to get into trouble. Okay, Tlhompho, you touched on it, but I want to, and this is we're drawing to the end of this conversation. It's critical to develop people within your own organization. You spoke about developing it internally. Yeah. How do you do that, and how do you recognize people that share the same drive, passion, and commitment that you have?
I think more than it's twofold. So I worked in corporate for about 10, 12 years of my life. So I know the frustration of having had to work in one business or department and having someone from the outside now being your boss, for example. So I think with that understanding is that I know that people want to grow, people want to develop as well. So me growing internal is that whoever that I'm promoting, at the time you're hoping that they understand the systems, they understand how you would function in different scenarios, So I look at people based on, because I'm always at the shop, I can then see who engages with customers and what is then the outcome, And I think that now informs who now needs to move up.
But you're not necessarily looking for a clone of yourself. You're looking for someone who will reflect your values, but will also bring something different and
100%.
hopefully challenge you.
100%, 100%. So because, I don't think I can do this forever. At some point, you need to develop somebody that will eventually take over the business. And that has to come from internally, because it's easier to promote internally than to get someone outside, because they understand how the system operates. They understand the vision. They understand why we're here in the first place.
Rapelang, is your approach similar?
Yes, I would say that I hire for similar values. And, these things are quite simple to test for. People can apply for a job and then you send them an email and they take 7 days to reply. That's already cross. Or they don't arrive on time for an online meeting, or they haven't used or tried to use a tool they haven't, been taught before. Understanding, what's the hardest thing they've had to learn. These are little cues that tell you when someone is hungry to move, to build a career, to learn. And then whatever their skills are, hopefully there's a space in the company that I can groom them in.
Do you motivate via incentivization?
No, I don't think we actually have very good or strong incentive structures. It's motivating by the incredible amount of work that we get done, and the fact we can build these tools. They get into 1,000 people's hands. You get feedback from them. They want more from you, and if you don't deliver it, you've got lots of anxious clients. And I think that's a great experience for most young people to walk into.
My great privilege in hosting this program is to draw the energy from entrepreneurs such as yourselves. And I thank you for that. Very quickly, final question. What's the next big thing? Are you looking 12 months down the line? What is it?
12 months. Oof. I've just started this new business in January, so I don't think I'll do anything for the next 2 or 3 years, but maybe further down the line is probably venture capital.
Okay. And I guess the next big thing for you is a peri ghost pepper.
But I think more than anything else in my industry is that social media is great.
Yeah.
But social media doesn't give you the names, the surnames, the addresses. I think where my business is concerned, especially now with this lockdown, you want to aggregate the content from your social media pages so that every follower has a name and surname, and that can only be done by usage of an app. And that's where Rapelang is important, to say, let's develop this app so that should a brand say we want to do a promo with the Wing Republic, then I can be able to say, look, there's Tlhompho, there's Jeremy, there's Rapelang, and they age group 45, they live in Bryanston, this and that, you know what I mean? So I think the next thing where my business is concerned is how do you then identify every single customer?
I say to both of you, good luck. And it has been such a privilege talking to you. Thank you.
Cool.
Great.